Our latest 9/11 updates posting goes over feds and the freedom of information, but it is also the 4,000th post on MediaMonarchy.com. As ridiculous as that may sound, it's true. 9/11 updates, feds, FOIA, and my 4,000th post. We've, of course, been running MediaMonarchy.com since 9/11/05. We've been on the air since October 06. And we always come back to 9/11 truth being one of our core areas. Again, I wanted to know what the video of the plane hitting the Pentagon looked like. And here I am now, 9 years later. Still, we're all trying to find out the answer to not just that, but the myriad of other questions. But first, from the New York Times, judge dismisses many claims in 9/11 lawsuits. A federal judge in Manhattan who was criticized by families of victims of 9/11 for taking too long to decide motions in lawsuits they had filed has handed down a ruling dismissing claims made against many of the defendants. That would, of course, be the fundraising fronts and others. The judge, George B. Daniels of Federal District Court, has overseen a group of lawsuits filed in the wake of the attacks. The suits sought to hold charities, financial institutions, and individuals responsible for providing money and other support to al-Qaeda. Politico reporting chances dim for a swift 9/11 decision, Obama, Holder, and KSM. We have to sadly note from 911truth.org that Bill Christensen, former senior analyst for the Central Intelligence Agency, who became an ardent supporter of 9/11 Truth, died June 13th, 2010, due to a rapidly advancing neurological disease which he had contracted 3 months earlier. We got a little bit of decent coverage for just a brief moment, as 9/11 blogger notes in Chris Matthew, MSNBC recent smear piece, Rise of the New Right. But we've also got more FOIAs from History Commons, NSA's 9/11 retrospective, where the poster on historycommons.org filed a new FOIA request. It's for the NSA's 9/11 retrospective, which collected communication intercepts relevant to the 9/11 plot. The request is also for the addendum to the retrospective, which was the subject of an earlier post on History Commons. The NSA's previously turned down a couple of FOIA requests, and we don't expect much, but if you don't take a shot, you don't score a goal. A list of successful FOIA requests can be found, and unsuccessful ones can be found on the links provided. And again, as we always mention, historycommons.org and the complete 9/11 timeline is indispensable. Global Research has a new article from Professor David Ray Griffin on, again, all that swirls around us. Did 9/11 justify the war in Afghanistan? Using the McChrystal moment to raise a forbidden question. Another one from 9/11 blogger, Actions and Inactions of the Commander in Charge of the U.S. Air Defense Failure on 9/11. That would be General Ralph Eberhart, the Commander-in-Chief of NORAD, the military organization responsible for defending U.S. airspace when 9/11 occurred. Considering that NORAD failed to intercept any one of the 4 aircraft targeted in the attacks and successfully defend New York and Washington, one would reasonably expect Eberhart to have been somehow held to account, and yet that did not happen. Amazing work being done by the folks connected to 9/11 blogger and History Commons, putting together again the people's history, the open source intelligence history of the official conspiracy theory of 9/11. And we covered this last week. The recent FOIA from the head of Smart CEO discovering that information pertaining to the insider trading leading up to 9/11, all that information's been destroyed. We, of course, reported several months prior even to that that the SEC had said, oh, they investigated themselves and nobody did any of that pre-9/11 insider trading. However, let's go to a man who never minces words, MaxKaiser.com, on the bin Laden trades and the insider trading of 9/11.
So I've been following this entire 10-year period, basically focused on one thing and one thing only. The actions, the trading of put options on the airline stocks immediately preceding the attacks of 9/11. The volume on those put options was 25 times greater than normal volume, and the imbalance of puts to calls was 80% for puts, 20% for calls, which is a very high concentration of negative bets on 25 times normal volume. Usually this is exactly what you see right before an announcement of a takeover, and the options market reflects inside information. When regulators try to figure out who is trading on inside information, they look at the options market. There's a thing on Wall Street called Stock Watch. The groups are like a little sleuth group on Wall Street looking for insider trading. And they look at the options, they look at volume, and they look at price. And when you see 25 times normal volume and huge prices in spike in price and huge imbalances of put to call ratio, this is usually a telltale sign of insider trading. So that we saw the exact same thing leading up to the 9/11 attacks on the airline stocks that all made millions and millions of dollars in profits based on insider information on those attacks. Now, we have a little update. David Callahan, who's the executive director of Smart CEO magazine, which I believe is actually published somewhere around Baltimore, Maryland, where the former headquarters of Alex Brown and Son, which was taken over by Deutsche Bank, the brokerage firm that handled these option trades. He has submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the SEC regarding the pre-9/11 put options, and the letter that he got back was startling, and he writes about it in the August edition of Smart CEO magazine. Basically, what he was told was that all that information has been destroyed.
The SEC wrote back to him and said that the government destroyed those documents.
Right.
That relates to those pre-9/11 put options in American Airlines and United. It was just those two airlines that had massive shorts on them.
That's right.
Or puts, as they call them.
Right. That's right. And the information was destroyed, and this is unusual to say the least. It wasn't as though they had some other alternative explanation for the huge anomalies in the option market, like there was some kind of hedging strategy being put on.
Well, the 9/11 Commission report says, oh, we looked into this. They do mention it in the 9/11 Commission report, and they say, we looked into it. It was, they reckon the extreme options were abnormal. And remember, United and American do have an option record going back decades. So they were able to see it was a drastic anomaly. And they blame it on a newsletter that recommended people short these two stocks. And they said it was a legitimate firm through which the bets were placed, meaning Alex Brown. They failed to mention in the 9/11 Commission report that Alex Brown had been run for several decades by the number 3 man at the CIA, Buzzy Krongard, who had moved to the CIA under George Bush.
That's right. He was in the CIA office, moving from Alex Brown to the CIA. He was deputy director under George Tenet. And there's tremendous overlap between, we know that a lot of the hedge funds that buy U.S. government bonds to help to support the U.S. government bond market are hedge funds that are registered in the Cayman Islands. And there's a lot of study and research in terms of the owners and the backers of these hedge funds being U.S. intelligence agencies that are buying these bonds to help support the bond market. So the markets and the intelligence services and Alex Brown in Baltimore, Maryland, which is right near Washington, D.C., George Tenet, Buzzy Krongard, there's tremendous overlap going there. Now, my feeling has always been from really the day after 9/11 is that there was a sufficient amount of information circulating on the desks and in the research notes of these brokers and insiders